Seoul was quieter after gunfire, not peaceful, just waiting. Rainwater still clung to the streets from the ambush the night before. Broken glass had been cleared, blood washed into drains, and witnesses silenced. The city moved forward as it always did, pretending nothing had happened. But inside the Hanseong Syndicate, everything had changed. Kang Joon-Ho stood before the long conference table once more, hands resting lightly against polished wood. Morning light filtered through the glass walls, pale and cold. Around him sat the senior members of his organization, men who had built their lives on his decisions, men who had followed him without hesitation. Until now, Park Dae-sung stood to his right, silent but rigid. They attacked us in open territory, one elder member said. That is not retaliation, that is declaration. Jun-ho nodded slightly. It is. And it began because of her, another added carefully. The room fell into a heavy silence. Min-seo. Even her name carried tension now. Jun-ho remained calm. The Baeko group was preparing movement long before she arrived, he said evenly. But your mercy accelerated it, the elder countered. There it was, not disrespect, not rebellion, but doubt, and doubt spread faster than bullets. Jun-ho's gaze hardened slightly. Do you question my authority? The room immediately stilled. No, the elder said quickly, but hesitation had already spoken. Jun-ho straightened his jacket, tailored charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, silver cufflinks engraved subtly with the Hanseong dragon insignia. Then understand this, he continued. We were heading toward conflict regardless. They simply chose their moment. Dae-sung finally spoke. They chose it because they believe we hesitate. Jun-ho looked at him. Do you? Dae-sung did not answer, and that silence said everything. Across the city, Min-seo sat inside a quiet tea house near Bukchon. The traditional wooden beams overhead contrasted with modern pendant lighting. Outside, Hanok rooftops curved elegantly beneath clear skies. She wrapped her hands around a porcelain cup. She knew what last night meant. She was no longer just a spy, she was a catalyst. Her phone remained silent, but silence in her world was dangerous. She felt watched. Not by Jun-ho's men, by Baek's. She was no longer trusted. Failure was unforgivable. The tea house door opened. She didn't look up at first. But the shift in atmosphere was immediate. Two men in dark coats entered. Not Hanseong, Baek's soldiers. They sat across the room without ordering tea, watching. Her pulse slowed deliberately. Fear would expose weakness. She finished her tea calmly, stood, walked past them. They followed. Outside, the narrow stone alley stretched ahead. Paper lanterns swayed gently in afternoon wind. Chairman Beck wants to see you, one of the men said. She didn't stop walking. I'm not finished, she replied. A hand gripped her wrist. She turned sharply. In that instant, a black sedan pulled to the curb. The rear window lowered. Kang Joon-ho sat inside, calm, unmoved. Release her, he said. The two men froze. The tension was immediate and electric. Chairman Baek, one began. Is not here, Joon-ho interrupted. The sedan doors opened. Two Hanseong men stepped out. Not aggressive, just present. Baek's soldiers released Min-seo slowly. Tell Baek, Jun-ho continued, if he wants a conversation, he should stop sending children. The message was clear. The sedan drove away with Min-seo inside. Neither spoke for several moments. You shouldn't keep rescuing me, she said quietly. I'm not rescuing you, he replied. I'm preventing escalation. She studied him carefully. You're risking loyalty, and you're risking your life. Silence. Why are you still helping me? She asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked out at the passing city, modern glass buildings rising beside centuries-old temples. Because I see something different when I look at you, he finally said. What? Someone who doesn't belong in this war. She almost laughed. You don't know me. No. he admitted. But I know fear, and you don't carry it. That unsettled her more than accusation would have. Back at headquarters, Dae-sung stood in Jun-ho's office. She's becoming leverage, Dae-sung said bluntly. She already was. This is different. Jun-ho removed his coat and placed it carefully over the back of a leather chair. How? Now our men see her walking freely under your protection, and they question it. Jun-ho turned slowly. They question you, Dae-sung finished. That was dangerous territory. Dae-sung had followed Jun-ho since their teenage years, rising through ranks together, surviving knife fights and street wars. Loyalty had always been unshakable, until mercy. You think I'm compromised, Jun-ho said calmly. I think you're distracted.
The words lingered, Jun-ho's voice lowered. Careful. Dae-sung held his gaze. I'm protecting the dragon. And who protects me? Jun-ho asked quietly. Dae-sung hesitated. You don't need protection. Everyone did, but leaders were not allowed to admit it. That night, the Han River reflected city lights like scattered stars. Min Seo stood near the railing, coat wrapped tightly around her. Jun-ho approached silently. You're being followed again, he said. I know. They'll try something more decisive next time. I know. He leaned beside her. You could leave the city. And go where? She asked. They'd find me. Yes. She turned to face him. So would you. He didn't deny it. Why do you keep coming back? She asked. His jaw tightened slightly. Because I don't abandon what I choose. The words were heavier than intended. She noticed. You chose me? A beat of silence. Yes. Across the river, fireworks suddenly erupted, celebration from some corporate event. Bright colors exploded in the sky. For a brief moment, they stood illuminated together. And someone watched from the shadows. Dae-sung. He had followed discreetly, not to interfere, but to observe. He saw the way Jun-ho looked at her. Not like a liability, like something fragile. That was when Dae-sung understood the true danger. It wasn't Beck, it wasn't war, it was attachment, and attachment fractured empires. The next morning, a shipment at Incheon port went missing. Intercepted, hijacked, Beck's signature move, but the message was attached clearly. A photograph, printed, delivered to Jun-ho's desk. It showed him and Min Seo standing by the river under fireworks. From a distance, captured, watched, Dae-sung stood beside him. They're escalating. Yes, Jun-ho replied quietly. And now it's personal. He studied the photograph carefully. Not anger, not panic, calculation. They think this weakens me, Jun-ho said. It might, Dae-sung answered. Jun-ho folded the photograph once. Then twice. Then we show them what weakness looks like. Dae-sung's eyes narrowed slightly. You're going to war? Jun-ho's voice dropped lower. No, I'm going to remind them why they feared us before. But inside him, something had shifted. This was no longer strategy alone. This was defense, not of territory, not of reputation, but of her. And protecting someone in a world like this was the most dangerous form of loyalty. The Black Dragon had chosen mercy. Now he was choosing attachment. And inside the Hanseong Syndicate, loyalty was beginning to fracture. In the underworld of Seoul, enemies did not always come from across the river. Sometimes, they sat beside you at the table. The Hanseong Syndicate headquarters felt colder that morning. Not physically, but spiritually. Kang Joon-ho stood alone in his private office, staring at the surveillance photograph Beck had sent. The image showed him and Min Seo standing under fireworks by the Han River, framed in light like something sacred. Vulnerable, he placed the folded photograph into a drawer beneath the ancestral altar in the corner of the room. The altar was small, simple. A framed picture of his father in traditional hanbo. An incense bowl, a jade dragon figurine passed down through generations. His father had ruled with discipline. Without hesitation, without attachment. Jun-ho exhaled slowly. The door opened without a knock. Park Dae-sung stepped in. You shouldn't keep that, Dae-sung said quietly. Jun-ho didn't turn. I keep what I choose. Dae-sung's jaw tightened. The men are restless. Because we lost one shipment? Because they think you've changed. Now Jun-ho faced him. And have I? Dae-sung hesitated for a fraction of a second. Yes. The word landed heavy. Outside, wind pressed rain against the glass. Change is not weakness, Jun-ho said evenly. In our world, it is, Dae-sung replied. Silence thickened between them. They had bled for each other before. Survived street wars, knife fights, police raids. But this was different. This was ideological. Beck intercepted the shipment because he knew we'd be distracted, Dae-sung continued. Or because he's desperate, Joon-ho countered. Dae-sung stepped closer. You think this is strategy. But it's personal now. He sees her as leverage. Joon-ho's eyes sharpened. And what do you see her as? Dae-sung didn't answer immediately. I see her as risk. The word echoed. Risk. Not enemy. Not traitor. Risk. That meant something. Joon-ho studied him carefully. Be careful how you define threats, he said quietly. Across the city, Min Seo sat inside her father's hospital room. Machines hummed softly. The scent of antiseptic filled the air. Her father lay unconscious, thin, fragile, death etched into his very existence. She adjusted his blanket gently. You shouldn't have borrowed from them, she whispered softly. The door creaked open. A nurse entered, or so it appeared. Min Seo sensed it instantly. The woman's posture was wrong. The eyes too sharp. Before Min Seo could react, the nurse spoke quietly. Chairman Beck is losing patience. Min Seo stood slowly. I completed the assignment. You survived. That was not the objective. The disguised woman stepped closer. Your father's medication is expensive. Min Seo's hands clenched. What does he want? Information. I don't have access anymore. Find a way. The woman leaned closer. If the black dragon truly chose mercy, use it. The nurse walked out calmly. Min Seo stood frozen. Beck was adapting. He wasn't angry. He was strategic. And she was still in play. That night, Joon-ho called an emergency meeting. The senior members gathered again. This time, tension was visible. I'm cutting Beck's supply line through Busan, Joon-ho announced calmly. A murmur moved across the table. That will trigger retaliation, one warned. It already has. Dae-sung remained silent, watching, measuring. You want war, Dae-sung said finally. No, Joon-ho replied. I want clarity. He leaned forward slightly. We allowed Beck to believe we were distracted. Now we remove his illusion of advantage. The room settled, confidence returned, power felt restored, but Dae-sung's eyes remained guarded. After the meeting, he lingered. Speak, Joon-ho said without turning. If this escalates further, she becomes target number one. I know, and if removing her from the equation stabilizes the syndicate? The implication was clear. Joon-ho turned slowly. Finish that thought. Dae-sung didn't flinch. If she disappears, Beck loses leverage. The room felt smaller. You would move without my order? Joon-ho asked quietly. Dae-sung's loyalty warred against his logic. I would protect the dragon. And what if the dragon chooses differently? Dae-sung's voice lowered. Then I protect the legacy. There it was. Not rebellion. Conviction. That was more dangerous. 2 nights later, Min Seo walked alone through Chongyicheon Stream. The water reflected city lights in gentle ripples. She wore a long dark coat over a silk blouse, hair loose against the wind. She sensed something before she saw it. Footsteps. Measured. Professional. She turned sharply. A black van parked at the curb. Doors opened. Men stepped out. Not Beck's. Hanseong. Her breath caught. Come with us, one said. Her heart pounded. Did Joon-ho send you? No answer. Hands grabbed her arms. She fought instinctively. Wait. A voice cut through the tension. Release her. The men froze. Joon-ho stood at the edge of the bridge. Alone. Dark coat flowing slightly in the wind. His eyes moved from Min Seo to his own men. Who gave the order? He asked quietly. Silence. The men exchanged uneasy glances. Dae-sung stepped forward from the shadows. I did. The world seemed to stop. Min Seo stared. Joon-ho's expression didn't change. You overstepped, he said calmly. I prevented escalation, Dae-sung replied. You created it. She is leverage, Dae-sung insisted. Remove her, remove the problem. She is not the problem. She is the distraction. The men watched, uncertain. This was no longer about Min Seo. It was about authority. You act without my permission again, Joon-ho said evenly, and you are no longer my right hand. Dae-sung's eyes flickered. Then perhaps you no longer need one. That sentence shattered something invisible. Not loyalty, but trust. The Hanseong code was simple. The boss leads, the right hand enforces. Doubt is weakness, and doubt had now spoken openly. Joon-ho stepped closer. So this is where you stand. Dae-sung held his gaze. I stand with Hanseong, and I do not? You stand with her. Silence. Wind moved through the bridge rails. Min Seo's pulse thundered in her ears. This was her fault, or so it felt. Joon-ho finally spoke. No, I stand with choice. He turned toward Min Seo. Go. She hesitated. Now, she ran. The men parted. Dae-sung watched her disappear into the city lights. You chose her, he said quietly. Joon-ho faced him fully. No, I chose control. Dae-sung's voice lowered. You chose uncertainty. Their eyes locked. This was the fracture. Not loud, not violent, but permanent. You forget, Joon-ho said softly, who built this empire. And you forget, Dae-sung replied, what it was built on. Fear, discipline, sacrifice, not mercy, not love. Joon-ho walked past him without another word. But Dae-sung remained on the bridge, looking out over the city, calculating, and somewhere inside him, a decision formed, not immediate, not reckless, but inevitable. If the dragon weakened, someone would have to correct the course, even if it meant betrayal. Back in his office later that night, Joon-ho stood before the ancestral altar again. Incense smoke curled gently upward. Father, he murmured quietly. You ruled with fear. His reflection in the glass looked unfamiliar. I am trying something different. The city outside pulsed with distant sirens. Behind him, his phone vibrated. Unknown number. He answered. Chairman Beck's voice came through smooth and amused. You are losing control. Joon-ho's expression hardened. Is that what you think? I think, Beck continued, your right hand is tired of holding back. A pause. He contacted me. Silence. A crack had widened. Be careful who you trust, Dragon, Beck said softly. The call ended. Joon-ho stared at his reflection. Mercy had started a war. But loyalty was about to start something worse. And part 2 ended not with gunfire, but with the quiet birth of betrayal. Mercy started the war. Now loyalty is breaking. Click like, comment your side, and watch what happens next.